And welcome back. Our big story for today, it's a case that has sent shockwaves across Ogun State and beyond. A traditional ruler entrusted with the responsibility of leadership and moral authority now facing the weight of the law. The suspended monarch of Agosasa, Oba Goriola Abiola, has been remanded in prison following allegations of publicly assaulting a 73-year-old man. What began as a viral video capturing the shocking incident has now spiraled into a legal battle, with the embattled ruler failing to meet his bail conditions.
Now, this raises pressing questions about the role of traditional institutions in modern governance, the limits of power, and also the justice system's response to high-profile cases. So, joining us now to discuss this, the legal and societal implications of this case is Mr. Biodun Sowunmi, I beg your pardon, is a public affairs analyst. Mr. Biodun, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
Let me start by asking the significance of this case here, having a monarch who is facing criminal charges. How significant is this instance?
It's quite very significant in Yoruba land. If you go back into history, you will understand the importance of it. People actually believe that the monarchs are next to, you have the Olodumare, the supreme being, then you now have the deities.
Yeah, exactly.
They are the gods, and then the monarchs are third in rank. They are next to the deities. And in terms of the power they wield, the influence, even in those days, they can order people to be killed and nothing would happen. In the past, those powers were exercised judiciously. You have the traditional balance system within it, which is the Ogboni fraternity or cult or whatever we call it, Ogboni society that can checkmate the king because they are the judiciary. The Ogbonis are judiciary,
right.
So they can checkmate the king at any point in time. But with the advent of contemporary times, I don't want to say modernism, we've never been so, we were never, I don't accept the term.
That system still persists.
So, but with the contemporary times, what we've seen over the years is the role that politics have played in eroding not only the influence and powers of traditional rulers, but also in influencing the selection process. And in some few cases, very rare cases, we've had people with questionable royal blue blood, emerging, as the king in one place or the other. And like the Yorubas believe, if you get something through the back door, you would also end up losing it through the back door. Now, this is a case of, this is not the first case. I remember there was a case in, one in Akure, where a traditional ruler, the deity of Akure then, Oba Adeshina, was accused of assaulting his wife. Eventually, it led to his removal from office. And then we had another one, which I don't know what happened to that.
But was that a traditional process, that removal from office at that time, that instance you just mentioned?
In the olden days...
Did it take a traditional process, or did it take interference from authorities of the law, like the police or the judiciary?
No, the current situation is, the Obas are under the local government. So a local government chairman can remove an Oba. But you and I know that will not happen without the consent of the governor. It is not just the governor that can order the removal of an Oba.
And in terms of culture, is this frowned upon by the institution of culture, where you have the interference of governance in our chieftaincy issues?
You see, it's always mixed. You have situations where government involvement has led to the selection of the right person by government insisting, no, you cannot corrupt the process, you have to follow the tradition and follow what the law says. Then in other cases, you've had these issues of wrong decision being taken, influenced by government, and then the courts throwing those decisions out. You remember there's a case very recently in Ogun State also involving a traditional ruler who has just been asked to vacate, by the seat by the court. So there are always, it's always a mixed thing. It depends on who is the governor at every point in time. That you see governors who are bent on ensuring the right selection process takes place. So, but in the past, we've also had things going wrong one way or the other. But the most important thing in all this is the fact that the local government has some measure of influence over the Obas. But in reality, the reverse is the case. Even though that's what the law says, in reality, hardly can you see a chairman of a local government that would attempt to depose an Oba. It's very strange. Don't forget, they are from the same community locally, and people revere their Obas more than the chairman. They see the chairman as, the man is temporary, is there temporarily. The chair is permanent, but the man will leave. So, but the Oba remains for life. So it's always a very mixed thing. But it's something which is very saddening when you see people entrusted with responsibilities to protect their subject, being the one abusing them. Like the case of the Ifo case, Orile Ifo, is so sad that you can openly see a younger king, which is about, I think the Oba must be about 43 or 45 years old, insulting an elderly man of 73 years old. Apart from the man kneeling in front of him, I don't see that as a big deal, except it went on for a long time. Normally, either you prostrate, you kneel for a king and all that. So those are culturally acceptable, but not asking people to stay there for a long time. Then that becomes punishment. Then the idea of removing his cap, that for me is an assault. And that gave the green light to the man that slapped him from the back. Right. So for me, that's not a conduct expected from a traditional ruler. And that is why I fully support the Egba Traditional Council and the governor, the government took immediate action, got the Oba suspended, and then is being processed through the criminal justice system currently. I understand he's in a prison in Ilaro currently, having failed to perfect his bail. So I think the law should take its course so that other people will take a cue from it. But the major issue is always right from the selection stage. When you get the selection wrong, you don't follow the traditional system, you will end up with occasional
so you
like
think
this.
the selection is the issue here? Well, let's widen this. You have excellently reeled out the history of monarchs, and especially in the Yoruba kingdom, and you've also just nicely put the intersection of government and the traditional systems, and in this case, traditional rulers. But then, where one power stops, the other begins, and you also put the power balance there, where you said that the traditional rulers, in some sense, have more sway. I wouldn't say influence and power. They have more sway on the people, on their subjects, as opposed to the government, maybe because of how long their positions are, which we see oftentimes is lifelong. But how then can we see a more leadership that is, or in this sense, the traditional system, where the leaders, and by leaders I mean the rulers or the chief or the obas, have more character? Does it mean that there have to be more stricter laws or more stricter rules, or is it the case of selection, as you said, in some case, some blue bloods that are handpicked for this role?
Well, why the selection is important is if you have a royal, if you are from a royal lineage, you will already get accustomed to certain behavior, that there are certain things you can't do outside, even though you are not the king, you are a relation, because it reflects badly on your family and on the king. So you tend, over a long period of time to have imbibed those ethics. But apart from that, the selection process, there's what we call IPB. IPB is it's when an Oba is selected and has a letter of approval from the government, it proceeds into seclusion. So it depends on where you are from. In some culture, it's 6 months, some 3 months, some 1 month. In some, nowadays we have seen Oba going into IPB for 1 day. So what would you learn? because the IPB, that seclusion.
Oh, it's supposed to be a learning process. That's what
yes, that is where you be told the expectation, how you behave, culturally, things you can do, which are acceptable, things you can do which are not acceptable. It's a grooming process. And now that some places, because you just want to be on the throne, you are now the Oba selected, you are doing IPB for one day.
Before somebody comes out,
rather
you
than
substitute.
3 months or 6 months or something.
Is it duration then that is, because even those who go through the entire process, when we think about our political positions, whether they're elected or appointed, there is some level of scrutiny that goes on there. They have to go through the whole campaigning, putting out their manifestos, people going into the voting booth and vote for those that they want to select and to rule them. Same goes for the appointed. They look at their resume, look at their years of experience and see who fits the criteria and who can deliver the KPIs of that position. So is it that if they don't learn the law or they don't understand the ways of the people who have not stayed long in seclusion to understand it, that means that their character will be good or the character will be bad, or does this pertain? Because how I see it is, I think it should be individual in a sense. If you are taking a power, if you're taking a position of leadership, whether it is appointed, elected, or ordained, that automatically means that you must have a certain level of ethics and morals and character.
No, there's more involved than morals and characters. What about the history of the town? What about the religion of the people? The Oba is the custodian of culture, and culture is language. And a lot of these instructions are passed in the local languages in each area. You have the traditional deities and all that. You have the festivals. It's a very rich educational process, for a king. So, which you cannot do even in a week. In a way, it's almost impossible to do that. What about the role of the fraternities, within the town? You have different types. You have the Ogbonis, you have, variants of different things. What about the cultural festivals? How these are done, how they do every single thing. So if you don't go through it, you won't understand it. What about the land belonging to the community, which is not totally different from your own personal land? All these issues will be identified, pointed out to you, because you will now be the custodian of them. That is why in some cases you see some Obas, going to sell the community land, which is meant for maybe town hall or something. So these are all the issues that you learn from IPB. You'll be told, that's the seclusion process. You'll be told you cannot do this, you cannot do that. These are what you can do. This land belongs to the town. This is the intention for that and all that.
So as we round up this topic here, I want to talk about public perception. With the case at hand, where we have this monarch being held in custody, how does it affect the public perception of the people who he rules? When he comes out, how would they address him? Would he still have that, what's the word now I'm looking for?
People that have been tried for corruption are still go on to become leaders.
You get what you understand, exactly. So what's the public perception going to be?
In his own case, it will be totally different.
You think so?
If he's convicted, he's being processed through the criminal justice system. Should that lead to conviction, his position will be extremely vulnerable.
He's not been able to post bail at this time. Do you think that his supervisors or his assistants, as his members of courts, will be able to help him meet bail?
No, but many people were appalled. If you look at the video, many people were appalled. You're a younger man, 45-year-old, and then humiliating a 73-year-old, even when the man was begging to say that, look, I was not well. And he said, if you die, or something like, if you die, I don't mind, I'll bury you. I mean, that's extreme. Things you don't expect from someone who is not even a traditional ruler. If you say you are not well, I should even, empathize. Where lies, all that. So the issue is more than what we're saying. I know it's down to the government. The government has taken the initial step of protecting the community by suspending the Oba and ensuring that it's processed through the criminal justice system. So at the end of the day, if he's found innocent, there's nothing anybody can do about that. If he's convicted, I'm sure that there is no way an Oba will go to prison in Yoruba land and then will be allowed to stay. I cannot see that happening. Our governments are more responsive to issues like that, so that there is nothing like being victimized or anything. You're going through the process. If should it lead to conviction, then you should know the results.
Mr. Biodun Sowunmi, I want to say a very big thank you. I think that was an education. But thank you very much for also giving us the real nitty-gritty into culture of the circumstance here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.